In the 1920s and 30s, all major naval powers limited by international treaties could not build new battleships and started to lay down large batches of cruisers instead. On October 22, 1935, cruiser Kirov was laid down at the Baltic shipyard in Leningrad. She incorporated the latest engineering achievements of the time and became the pride of Soviet shipbuilding.
Kirov was the descendant of the Italian Condottieri-class cruisers. Soviet engineers studied the documentation received from Italians and created an original design named Project 26. Still, you can tell by the cruiser's elegant silhouette that she is of Italian lineage. The building of the first Soviet cruiser was declared a priority project. Kirov was launched only a year after her keel had been laid down. A number of new technologies were adopted during the construction of the ship, which allowed engineers to accelerate the process. For example, for the first time in Soviet shipbuilding, the main power plant and a part of the auxiliary mechanisms were mounted when the ship was still on the stocks, while usually this kind of work was done after the ship was launched and berthed at the moorage wall. Cruiser Kirov was standing out among ships of the same type for her performance characteristics. Her length was more than 191 meters, width more than 18 meters, and draft at a total displacement of more than 6 meters. The cruiser's total displacement was 9,436 tons. Kirov was equipped with a boiler and turbine two-shaft main power plant. During the delivery trials, the cruiser was able to produce more than 113,000 horsepower and almost reached a speed of 36 knots. The citadel protecting the main mechanisms, machines, artillery control posts, and magazines consisted of the armor belt, transverse bulkheads, and lower deck, all 50 millimeters thick. The primary armament turrets had the same armor. The cruiser's primary armament consisted of 9 180mm B-1P guns mounted in 3 turrets. The initial design intended for the cruiser to have 6 main guns installed in 3 twin turrets. However, Soviet engineers proposed an original turret design with 3 guns, which allowed them to augment the firepower by 50% without increasing the ship's displacement. The long-range anti-aircraft artillery consisted of 100mm guns. The close-range AA artillery included 6 45mm dual-purpose semi-automatic 21K guns and 4 DSHK machine guns. The ship was also armed with 2 triple torpedo launchers with a caliber of 533mm. The cruiser had 2 KOR-1 aircraft that were used for reconnaissance and spotting. A catapult installed amidship helped them take off. Kirov began service in the Baltic Fleet in 1938. On June 22, 1941, Nikolai Kuznetsov, Commander-in-Chief of the Navy, ordered all fleets to be put on alert, and later the same day, the anti-aircraft artillery of Kirov fought off an enemy raid near Riga's harbor. The enemy experienced the full power of the cruiser's artillery for the first time when they approached Tallinn, where the Baltic Fleet was stationed. Shells from the Kirov's 180mm guns dispersed the enemy infantry and destroyed armored vehicles. The adversary didn't let this go unanswered. During 5 days of battle, more than 500 shells were shot at the ship and more than 300 bombs dropped. But thanks to skillful maneuvering and intense AA fire, Kirov managed to avoid serious damage. A quick advancement of German troops towards Tallinn led to the decision to evacuate the Baltic Fleet, the troops, and valuable industrial equipment.
The cruise from Tallinn to Kronstadt took 3 days. Soviet ships had to pass through extensive minefields in bad weather. In addition, they were constantly attacked by enemy aviation and torpedo boats and suffered enormous losses. Of the 225 vessels, almost a quarter sank.
During the Tallinn evacuation, cruiser Kirov repelled attacks from 32 aircraft and miraculously avoided hitting a mine or catching one of the 80 bombs dropped on the ship. After arriving in Kronstadt, the cruiser was added to the artillery defenses, but due to regular bombardments of Kronstadt's harbors, she was transferred to Leningrad. The ship's primary armament did not allow a moment's peace to advancing enemy troops. In the spring of 1942, the German command planned Operation Ice Strike, which was aimed at destroying ships moored on the Neva River, including Kirov, with one massive air raid. However, the anti-aircraft artillery of the ships foiled enemy plans. After 2 days of attacks, German pilots managed to score only one direct hit. A bomb pierced the deck inside of Kirov and exploded in the water. At the end of April, German aviation attempted a new mass strike, during which Kirov was hit by 3 bombs. They set the cruiser ablaze. Sailors threw burning ammunition overboard, while some shells exploded right in their hands. The loss of life among the crew was very severe that day. 86 people were killed and 46 wounded. On the night of April 24, the badly damaged Kirov was towed to repair docks, and an old training ship, Svir, was put in her place. The next morning, enemy aircraft appeared again over the cruiser's former moorage and sank Svir. The repairs took 2 months, during which the anti-aircraft artillery of the cruiser was reinforced. By the end of June, Kirov took up a position near Universitetskaya embankment in Leningrad. In January 1944, the Soviet command began an offensive to defeat German troops, blockading Leningrad. It was desperately awaited by all inhabitants and defenders of the besieged city. Kirov, together with other ships, supported the advancement of the Soviet army by unleashing her primary armament on pockets of enemy resistance. For the successful combat actions and courage shown by her crew, cruiser Kirov was awarded the Order of the Red Banner. She was the first surface ship of the Baltic Fleet to receive it. In the evening of January 27, 1944, the cruiser's anti-aircraft guns fired blanks for the first time during the war. This way, Kirov saluted the end of the Leningrad blockade.
The hero of the Tallinn breakthrough and defender of Leningrad, the legendary cruiser Kirov was decommissioned in 1974 with a service record that spanned almost 4 decades. Her forward gun turrets, propellers, and anchors were preserved in St. Petersburg and served as the basis for a memorial to the defender of the city.